Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kind of some under the radar news coming out late Tuesday night for Shane Beamer, the South Carolina Gamecocks. Mike Shula going to get elevated to the offensive coordinator position. And I couldn't be more of a fan of this hire, really, for a couple of different reasons. And I think it starts with, is it the flashiest hire Shane Beamer could have made? No, absolutely not. But it's the hire, to me, that makes the most sense. The number one thing you're looking at if you're Shane Beamer's continuity. Like you look at this South Carolina team, you look at this offense in the back half of 2024. Many of y'all know I was banging the table for South Carolina to make the playoffs because they look like a playoff team the last 6 weeks of the season. If you're Shane Beamer, you just want to pick up right where you left off in 2025. And so, what better way to do that than elevating a guy that's been with your program for 2024? So, Mike Shula is that guy. I think, secondly, this hire was, I think the thinking and rationale for Shane Beamer was, what offensive coordinator can we bring in to maximize LaNorris Sellers? Because you make no mistake about it, a maximized LaNorris Sellers, a LaNorris Sellers that reaches his peak as a football player, this is going to be one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in the country over the next couple of years. Then you look at Mike Shula. He has a laundry list of very good quarterbacks that he's worked with in the NFL. Who is the quarterback he had the most success with? Cam Newton. Now, am I saying LaNorris Sellers is going to be the next Cam Newton? No, I think that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid that's going into his redshirt sophomore year. But I ain't saying he can't be. I mean, LaNorris Sellers is 101 in terms of the skill sets he brings to the table. Cam Newton was 101 as well. So you're getting a guy that I think knows how to design an offense for LaNorris Sellers to have that maximized success. And I think finally, this was a hire that you wanted to be quick with. Now more than ever, you want to make sure you're being quick with your hires because you want to hit the transfer portal. That transfer portal is open. It's hard to recruit guys out of the transfer portal without an offensive coordinator. Fits LaNorris Sellers. It allows for continuity. It was a quick hire. To me, that checks off all the boxes that we were looking for in South Carolina's OC hire. Now, I want to get into a little bit more of Mike Shula, but I also want to start getting into a little bit of some of the transfer portal targets that I think would really help the guys that are coming to South Carolina and taking visits, guys who have emerged as targets. But more importantly, all right, Mike Shula's taking over. How can we maximize this offense in 2025? Where to go in the portal? Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the South Carolina fans that y'all know I've had a blast talking this program over the last 6-7 weeks. The amount of support you guys have shown the boys has been absolutely amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one now. My quick take on Mike Shula is, look, this guy's been I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. He was working with the Bills, and I obviously loved what he did with Josh Allen. Mike Shula is more than qualified. This dude has been around the block more times than a lot of other coaches and has worked with a lot of good quarterbacks. We say this all the time when we're looking at offensive coordinator hires. I'm not too concerned about the scheme. You can talk about any scheme you want, pro style, RPO, air raid, whatever scheme you want to run. It doesn't matter if you don't have good quarterbacks play. And so when I always am looking at new offensive coordinator hires, I look at the track record of those offensive coordinators with development of quarterbacks. Mike Shula, he's one of the best in the business at getting the best out of quarterbacks. So to me, that really matters, especially when you're talking about a quarterback that has the talent and ceiling of a guy like LaNorris Sellers. So I think, again, was it the flashiest hire? No. Was it a damn good hire? In my opinion, absolutely. And now the attention gets turned to South Carolina in the transfer portal. This is going to be a fun next couple of weeks for South Carolina, I think most notably because this is a program that is going in the right direction, similar to the effect DJ Lagway is having with Florida. I think LaNorris Sellers carries that very similar weight. If you are a wide receiver, if you're an offensive skill guy, look at that South Carolina offense. Look at what LaNorris Sellers could be going into 2025 and tell me you don't want to be a part of that offense. And I think in general, you look at this program and see where this program is going as a whole. Say, yeah, this looks like a spot that I want to kind of hitch my wagon to. You look at some of the transfer portal additions from last year that South Carolina had a ton of success with. When guys like Kyle Kennard and guys like Rocky Sanders. Shane Beamer's shown the ability to, hey, you come here in the portal you can have a lot of success. Now, the number one thing I'm looking for is continuing to build around LaNorris Sellers in terms of weapons. I think a lot of South Carolina fans would probably agree with this sentiment that if there was one flaw with South Carolina, more early than it was late, it was that the pass catchers around LaNorris Sellers probably could be a little bit better. And I think, look, Mazeo Bennett as a true freshman looked great. I expect him to be very good in 2025. Nick Harbor, them lights are turning on for Nick Harbor. Like there's a real chance we're talking about Nick Harbor being one of the best wide receivers in the country in 2025. I really like Mike Smith at the tight end spot. So there is some young talent. And we already talked about the offensive line to me. One was clearly getting better. Number two is young and talented. Like there's a young pipeline of offensive linemen. Yes, will South Carolina look to add some veteran depth and talent in the portal on the offensive line? Yeah, absolutely. You can never have enough good players and depth on the offensive line, but this is not to me, a glaring concern if you trust your evaluations from these guys at the high school level. I mean, talk about Tree, Josiah Thompson, Bott, even a guy like Marquis Anderson, Cam Pringle. There's a lot of young talent on this offensive line. I don't think South Carolina needs to go and grab 6 or 7. What they do need to do, I think, is go get some wide receivers. And lucky for South Carolina, there are a ton of good pass. If there was one position you want to address in this portal window, it's wide receiver, pass catchers, because it is loaded. Now, let's start with the tight end position. One, because you look at the Mike Shula offense, you look at South Carolina last year when Mike Shula was at Carolina, who was the leading pass catcher? It was Greg Olson with Cam Newton. You go back to last year, it was Joshua Simon. The tight end position is very important. I think you got a good one in Mike Smith, but I think you want to add another one because we all know South Carolina wants to run with a lot of 12 personnel. Zach Atkins from Northwest Missouri, really intriguing guy. Now, I'll be honest with y'all, my Saturdays I don't spend watching Northwest Missouri, but Zach Atkins has caught my eye. Went back, watched a little bit of his game. One, versatile. He's a H-back. You can split him out wide. You could put him in line as a blocker. So you can do a lot of different things that South Carolina wants to do with their tight ends. And more importantly, this is a guy that was, a 6'4", buck 90 wide receiver coming out of high school. And so there's some functional athleticism and ball skills that are certainly there with Zach Atkins. And then he put on the weight so he can become an inline blocker as well. Versatile guy that can be an H-back, that can be an inline tight end, that you can split out wide, that you can move around a lot, that gives you some juice after the catch. To me, this would make a lot of sense. Another guy I would certainly be looking at, and he's my number one tight end, and it's not even close, Luke Haas from Arkansas. This kid in 2023 was well on his way to being a freshman All-American and then has a season-ending injury. And then in 2024, just didn't get incorporated as much as we all expected within this Arkansas offense. You look at Luke Haas's numbers, he catches 85% of the footballs that go his way. He has not dropped a football in his whole career at Arkansas. A guy that he's not going to wow you when he walks into a room, 6'3", 240, blocks his tail off. And we always say this, if you want to be a good blocking tight end, it matters more about if you're willing to do it than what your body type is. Luke Haas is a very willing blocker. He's a crafty tight end that knows how to create separation and find space. With the young quarterback, you want to give these safety blanket kind of pass catchers. Luke Haas, to me, is quite frankly, in my mind, I think can be one of the best tight ends in the country in 2025. South Carolina is going to be an attractive spot because there's not a lot of offenses that can say, hey, we kind of run our passing attack through the tight ends. South Carolina is one of those offenses that does. And so I look at the combination of the kind of offense with LaNorris Sellers and say, if you're a top tight end, why would you not be looking at South Carolina to play your football? And then at the wide receiver position is interesting because, again, I think there are some guys in that room are coming on. Nick Harbor, Mazeo Bennett, probably the first two to come to mind. A wide receiver I'd be looking for. We got our big-bodied boundary wide receiver that can stretch vertically in Nick Harbor, and he's certainly coming on. I wouldn't mind having a veteran wide receiver that can be a little bit more of a well-rounded guy. If there's one knock on Nick Harbor right now, he's kind of one-dimensionally just big, tall, fast, can run in a straight line. I think he's going to I think he's going to improve the other dimensions of his game, which I think we all expect going into 2025. But I wouldn't mind adding a wide receiver that is a little bit more of a separator. Eric Rivers is a guy that I love. One, he's really good after the catch, knows how to create separation, but also brings that verticality to this offense, which is something you want to lean into with LaNorris Sellers. And LaNorris Sellers in 2024, over a 50% completion percentage, 20 plus yards down the field. He is clearly very comfortable pushing it down the field. You look at Eric Rivers, 18 yards per catch at FIU last year. He's a wide receiver that can create separation in the short intermediate route tree, which I think South Carolina is missing. But he's also a guy that, hey, I can get behind the defense. You turn on the FIU stuff and say consistently getting behind the defense and attacking the deeper third. Eric Rivers, to me, would make a lot of sense. Two other names I would just keep my eye on, Jordan White at from Liberty. This one would make a lot of sense, right? You're replacing a center that's played a lot of football. Jordan White, two things I love about Jordan White. One, he is extremely experienced and has played a lot of good football at Liberty, over 2,200 snaps. And then secondly, he gives you that guard center versatility. You know, he started every single snap in 2023 at center, every single snap in 2024 at guard. He can give you that. Hey, if you need him at center, you can play center. If you can play guard, you can play guard. When you're trying to build out an offensive line with depth, having position versatility matters. Jordan White to go and probably my favorite aspect of this fit is, hey, we're super young on the offensive line. What better way to kind of gel this offensive line together than going out and getting a guy that's played over 2,200 snaps in his career in the middle of this offensive line? Makes a lot of sense to me. And then off-ball linebacker, Andrew Jones from Grambling State. This is a position that it's not great right now. You know, you look at the off-ball linebackers, there's not a ton of guys that stand out to you, but Andrew Jones, he's a guy that's intriguing. You look at him and say over 120 tackles last year, 20 tackles for loss. You talk about what made South Carolina so special last year was the negative plays that were getting created. Like, go bring in a linebacker that can create some of those negative plays, create some of those third and long opportunities, and then go get Dylan Stewart active on the outside. That's probably where I'll close. Is what I love about South Carolina is they're taking care of what's on the roster right now. Then they'll go to the portal. You're seeing new deals for Trevon Baugh, Dylan Stewart. Roster retention is just as important as making additions in the portal. You see some programs that value going to the portal that comes kind of at the expense of keeping the best players on your roster. You know, South Carolina saying, hey, we like our young nucleus. We want to make sure these guys are taken care of, and then we can go to the portal. That's the way to do it for me if I'm Shane Beamer. Going to be a fun next couple of weeks. You know, love the Mike Shula hire. Really do like what South Carolina can do in the portal. We'll break down the commitments as they come. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.